Operations and Overhead, a Business School Module. Well, knowing you've made it this far, let me say you're doing great. To review, you now know exactly what you want to take out of your business in the next 12 months, and you have an initial concept of the business model you're going to use to do just that. The business model, that how-to, will drive the operations and overhead that you need to put into place. The words overhead and operations can sound like Fortune 500 company terms, but they're really not. Operations is simply what you do from input to output, from the moment a prospect is identified to the moment the project is complete. That's your operations, and that process defines your core competencies. Core competencies define the relatively few areas in which you must excel. You cannot be all things to all people. These core competencies thus define the areas in which you must invest, which leads us to overhead. Operations are what you do to meet your earnings goal. Overhead is the cost structure put in place to support those operations. Identifying, ranking, and committing to various core competencies and their underlying cost, or overhead, is one of the most important responsibilities of a business owner. It's important to think about overhead choices in terms of strategic alternatives. A particular business model, for example, that was going to commit to all web-based marketing would have very different overhead structure than a business model committed to all direct mail, or one committed to all public relations, or one that planned to mix all of those things. Because it would take an entire business school to go through each line item on your profit and loss statement, we have lumped 80% of your expenses into a relatively few number of buckets. These buckets include personnel expenses, outsourcing expenses, facilities, technology, and marketing, on which we'll have a separate segment. If you look at personnel, the goal for each bucket is to come up with a number of what you will spend in a year. With personnel, you can leave your earnings out, since that's effectively the bottom line number we're working toward, what you get to keep after all else is paid. What will your total payroll be? Do you see how answering this question leads you immediately to strategic choices? Will you hire more? Will you trim down? These are the questions you'll have to answer. Include all full-time, part-time, and 1099 workers in this calculation, and use this to project. Don't just look back. The next bucket is outsourcing. For many design firms, this number is growing each year. As the personnel costs, those fixed costs may be falling. Every firm outsources something. Think of it. You outsource your graphics art, your web development, IT services, even your accounting. That's all that outsourcing means. But keep in mind that your core competencies, those areas you defined as being essential to your business model, are the ones that you may not want to outsource. Outsourcing can provide great flexibility, require less management time, theoretically, and converts fixed cost to variable cost. But it can also be more expensive and give you less control. Depends on your business model. Technology. Where are the costs in technology? After all, don't we see software and hardware costs plummeting and seeming relatively low even before the advent of cloud computing? Well, the costs are in the evaluation phase, the training phase, and inefficient workflows caused by a lack of training and understanding of the technology we've employed. These are what I call gaps and breaches, and they're very expensive in invisible ways to companies. Regardless of expense, a technology map will go a long way to defining your business model. Simply a map of all the different technology solutions you employ and how they relate to each other. In summary, stay with the big picture. Don't get bogged down in detail. Remember, you only have 4 hours. But you should have a ballpark number of what it will take to support the business model you're building in terms of personnel, outsourcing, facilities, technology, and marketing, again, which we'll look at in a moment. In fact, in the next module, now that you know your core competencies, believe it or not, they were revealed when you prioritized your spending in those buckets. So now it's time to identify the clients that will be most attracted to the set of skills that you're placing as your highest priority. Then we'll figure out how to find them.